One of the biggest misconceptions we see when it comes to Roth IRAs is the 5-year rule. So today we're going to talk about how the 5-year rule works and who it applies to and who it doesn't. So let me pull up the 5-year rule chart that we created to show who does this affect. So here's the chart to show you how the 5-year rule works. So if we start off on the top, we're going to go to the contribution side. So when you look at the contributions, there's two things we're talking about here. One is from contributions by contributing to your Roth IRA, and the other is by doing a Roth conversion. Those are two totally different mechanics of getting money to the Roth. So let's talk about the Roth contribution first. So understand with the Roth contribution, there's a lot of limits. And this is probably what you've heard is, oh, I can't do a Roth. It's only been around since 1997. A Roth 401k, it didn't exist until 2006. There's all these limits. Also, you can only contribute $6,500 to a Roth IRA each year if you're under age 50. If you're over age 50, then you can do a $1,000 catch-up, which means that you can contribute $7,500 a year. Although, there's some things to be aware of. One is you have to have earned income. You have to be working. And no, a pension doesn't count. Social Security doesn't count. You've got to have actual earned employment income in order to contribute. Also understand that if you make too much money, then you may not be able to contribute as well. So you may be eligible for a strategy called a backdoor Roth IRA. We've done another YouTube video. If you just click up there, you'll be able to watch that. But if you make too much money, you still may be able to get money to a Roth. There are just some limitations you've got to be aware of before you do that. But we do that with a lot of our clients. So as you can see, there's a lot of limitations on the Roth contribution, as I just noted. So maybe you can't do a Roth contribution. Although something you may be able to do, which we do with a lot of our clients who are retired, who don't have earned income, is we do a Roth conversion. And here on the chart, you'll see the conversion. Now, the idea of a Roth conversion is you move money from tax deferred, like a 401k or an IRA, and you move it to a Roth. And if you do that, you've got to pay the taxes now, but you don't have to pay the taxes moving forward. And that's the idea of a Roth conversion. Now, on a Roth conversion, you may ask, oh, all those same limits apply, right? Well, they do not. With a Roth conversion, there's no limits. The only one thing you really have to worry about is, do you have money and tax deferred? There's some other little things you've got to be worried about depending on your age and things like that. But for the most part, it's pretty simple, as I just explained. But just make sure you understand how to do a Roth conversion and all the side effects that it could cause, because it's not as always easy as how I'm making it sound. So let's start off with the contribution that I explained. And again, the way to think of these two is by shoveling or by the dump truck. A contribution can be considered a shovel because of all those limits. But if you wanted a dump truck money, then you could convert over to the Roth. There's no limits. You could convert every dollar you had if you wanted to. So let's talk about the shoveling first. So for this Roth contribution, if you contribute $5,000, well, you can actually go into your Roth IRA tomorrow, regardless of age, and you can take that money out. No penalty, no taxes. Where this becomes an issue is if you take out more than what you contributed. And we'll talk about that on the earnings section on the other side. And so that's how that operates there. This is actually one of the biggest misconceptions that we see when it comes to the 5-year rule is being able to take those contributions out at any time. Many people don't understand that, and that's one of the reasons why we always suggest, like, hey, if you just have money sitting in your bank account, maybe you just utilize the limits and put it and contribute to a Roth. And maybe if you want it still liquid, maybe just keep it in a money market account. But that way, all of the growth is tax-free instead of taxed as taxable interest. So we are always trying to encourage clients. Let's try to max that out if we have the funds to do so. Just because there's only so much you can get there, and the tax-free growth is much better than keeping it in a non-qualified type of account there. And so that's how the Roth contribution works. Pretty easy, pretty simple on that one. So before we move on to the conversion part, let's stick on the contribution side of things and see what happens, if we put that $5,000 in and now it grows to $6,000 and now we want to take out some money. What happens to the earnings there is what we're going to talk about next. So if you look on the right side of this chart, you're going to see held 5 years, not held 5 years. This is where the 5-year rule is going to play a part here. So if you have not held your earnings for 5 years, that's when you can start to run into issues. And that's when, hey, if you're not age 59 and a half, you're going to have a 10% penalty but you're also going to have to pay income tax on those earnings. So you have to worry about both of those things. But if you're over age 59 and a half, you have not held your Roth IRA 5 years, okay, well now you have to pay income tax, but there is no penalty because you're over age 59 and a half. So that's how that rule works. But understand, when you do this calculation, the conversion amount, the contribution amount comes out first, and then earnings would come out next. So in most instances, you're not going to spend your entire Roth IRA. You're not going to take out every penny in there. What we tell most of our clients is, hey, we're probably not going to touch our Roth until another 5-10 years in the future because tax rates are expected to be low for the next few years. And also, all of this growth is tax-free, so we don't want to touch it unless tax rates are really high, is really the idea of this planning that we're looking at doing. So that's how that works on the earnings if you have not held it 5 years. Now, what if you have held it 5 years? Well, if you have held it 5 years, it's going to depend on your age. So if you're not age 59 and a half, then you're going to have to pay taxes and you're going to have to pay penalty, and that's if you held it for 5 years. But if you're over age 59 and a half, you've held it 5 years, there is no issues. So if you put in your $5,000 to a Roth IRA and it grows to $6,000, you can take out that $6,000 without any issues. The only restriction becomes if you're under age 59 and a half. So what I tell most of our clients is, hey, if you're over age 59 and a half, the 5-year rule really doesn't apply to you at all because, one, like I just said, we're not going to take out the earnings, but two, if you've already had a Roth open, well then, you're good. So those are the things to keep in mind here to keep it more simple with all of these, terminology and all the complexion of the chart here. So let's move back then to the conversion. So with the conversion, it's going to be a little different. So remember I said on the contribution, you put in $5,000, you can take out $5,000. On a conversion, it's a little different. So let's say you did a $100,000 Roth conversion. You moved it from your IRA to your Roth. Well, now we got to look and see if we've held it 5 years or we haven't held it 5 years. If we've held that conversion amount 5 years, we're good to go. If you put in $100,000, you let it sit, marinate for 5 years, maybe it's grown. You maybe can't take out the growth, depending on your age, but you could take out that $100,000 conversion. Now, if you have not held it 5 years, then it's going to depend on your age. So if you're over age 59 and a half, it doesn't matter. Okay? If you convert $100,000, you can take it out right away. If you're not age 59 and a half, well then now you're going to have that 59 and a half, that penalty if it's not held 5 years until you've held it for 5 years, like I just explained. So there you go, is the 5-year rule in a nutshell. I know it's a bit confusing, but go ahead and press pause as I'm talking through this so you can best understand it, and always come back to this chart whenever you have specific situations. I do this every day, and I still come back to this chart quite a bit whenever someone has a question on a 5-year rule because I've got to know what the situation is. So you can see there's a lot of different ways to do it. That's why we created this chart. Hopefully it's helpful for you. If you like these videos, like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.